This is TWiT.
Top story isn't, well, I guess it's newsy, but this is a topic that I'm going to introduce it and you're going to be like, really? We're here again? Google and its ambitions with tablets is the top story. Obviously we've talked about Google and tablets and their successes, but probably more importantly, their failures over the years. But we're starting to see multiple clues that show that Google might be getting interested again. Who knows what that leads to? I would say a lot of people aren't very optimistic about where that leads. It might just be a little too late, by comparison to things like the iPad, but we've got some clues. Android 12L, we already know this is the next version of Android. It's kind of a step up version from Android 12, which is already out. Android 12L, from my understanding, has been really designed for larger screen devices, but almost more specifically to foldable devices. But the beauty there is when you unfold a device, sure, there's the foldable aspects that the OS has to adhere to, but then you end up with a really large screen. So maybe there's more incentive to go back in there with Android and kind of make the changes to make it work not only on the foldable, but also on the unfolded large screen, and that translates over to tablets. So we already know, Google's been working hard on that. The beta tests, the beta versions of Android 12L are out there. We're kind of, waiting for the official release of that. But 9 to 5 Google spotted a job listing for a senior engineer manager in the Android tablet app experience group. And the listing itself says, "We believe that the future of computing is shifting towards more powerful and capable tablets." That right there is a big statement coming from Google, who has really been very wishy-washy with tablets. It also says, "We're working to deliver the next chapter of computing and input by launching seamless support across our platforms and hero experiences that unlock new and better ways of being productive and creative." That could have to do with Chrome OS, and how it interacts with Android. That could have to do with foldables. That could also have to do with tablets, which is what this job listing was for. And a friend of the show, J.R. Raphael from Computer World, also spotted that Rich Miner, who is a co-founder of Android, one of the co-founders of Android, has for the last number of years been busy in Google Ventures and other educational projects at Google, but returned to the Android division as of March 2021 and might actually have some sort of involvement with this kind of like new revitalized push in tablets, and we've seen some of these kind of developments. We've talked on the show about Kids Space, which is like an Android tablet is like an official Android version of like a kids zone that sometimes you buy other manufacturers' tablets, and they've created these kind of like siloed kid areas. So Android has that. Entertainment Space is another one. I'm curious to know though, like, how do you feel about Google caring about tablets again? Do you think this is? Do you think this leads to a world where Android tablets can actually finally kind of prove themselves as something that people want, or are we too far past this? I mean, I feel like this is really late to learn any lessons about this, because we've already kind of made up our minds.
I think there's two ways of looking at this. The first one is from a development standpoint. Google has been a bit fragmented internally about what they thought tablets were. We saw their early efforts with up to the Nexus 9. The tablet experience at Google was okay, but it never really sold well. It was never really sold well to their hardware partners in the Open Handset Alliance. So they didn't really do very well then. And then there seems to have been a shift of effort towards Chrome OS and things like the Lenovo Chromebook tablet or the Chromebook Duet tablet form factor and product package. So Google has really let the actual Android tablet ecosystem go. And companies like Lenovo have stepped in and filled that gap that Google really didn't care about that much. But more importantly, Amazon have really just killed it in the last couple of years with the Amazon Fire tablets. From what I see, a lot of markets in Europe and the US and Canada have done very well with Fire tablets. And especially during the pandemic, when people were homeschooling, people really couldn't afford to spend a lot of money on a fruity tablet from Apple. And they ended up buying the whole family Android tablets, which were in fact Amazon Fire tablets. So Google is at this point at a risk of completely losing control of the tablet ecosystem, and forks of Android or their OEMs, ODMs are going to do very well with it. So I think they need to put a bit of effort back into it and rein in this sort of sprawling ecosystem they have little control over, and they can't get their services on. For example, on the Amazon tablets, it's quite difficult as a user to get the Google services sideloaded. And for most users, they'll never have them apart from within the Amazon web browser. So I think what Google need to do is obviously improve their tablet ecosystem, but also maybe re-architecture it from the ground up so that they can regain control of it and get Google services and all their media services on it. Because at the moment, they're at risk of losing out on that whole market segment, that whole computing experience, where others have stepped in to fill the gap.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting to see, obviously, if they're hiring now for a senior engineering manager for the tablet experience, it'll be at least 18 months before we see some tangible results from this hiring process. It's not something that you do overnight. They have to re-engineer things from the ground up, or they already have a roadmap, but it needs to be implemented.
Yeah, that's one of the questions that I had, because the kids space, entertainment space, these are kind of tablet forward kind of changes to Android that happened like a year ago. You know what I mean? So there was some action here, some movement here, at least in that regard. And then Android 12L, it's about larger screen devices. That's already in motion. But I think you're right. This is probably a little ways out. I was trying to do some quick searches to see, like, of all the rumors that we've been hearing about and everything, I think a Pixel tablet is not a rumor that I've really noticed or paid close attention to. But I did a quick search, and yeah, it looks like there was a patent last June that kind of points to the idea of a Google Pixel tablet of some sort. And I haven't really dug into this to really understand, like, what sets it apart, what's different, what's specific about it. But if Google's putting its efforts into revitalizing its tablet side of its business, I mean, you kind of imagine that there would be a Pixel tablet at some point, especially if they're coming out with a watch at some point, which we've heard a lot about, especially if they're coming out with, a foldable, like we've heard about as well. So heck, there could be all sorts of Pixel devices. And that might be Google's, something Google's really working towards. We want a family of all different, device types, and this would fall into that category. Who knows?
Well, back in the day, we're now talking about 6-7 years ago, Google used to sell itself as build yourself your apps once and make them scalable to all screen sizes, whether that's phones, tablets, and TV screens. I think that they essentially gave up on that after a while. Most of the larger developers were used to having a slightly different release for iPads. So they said, why not do the same for Android? Have one release for phones, one release for tablets. And sadly, it never really took off, the whole scalability of Android, as in having one paradigm for your app user experience that would scale seamlessly, never really happened for most apps. I believe that they're doing a passable job on Chrome OS with the Android runtime on there and having placed the Play Store there. They've kept that alive barely, but things really need to bring others on board to give good experiences and take back that experience that companies like Amazon have really won in. There's so many people using Amazon tablets now. I wouldn't be surprised to see there are more people using Amazon tablets than Android tablets in some markets.
I'd be curious to know that, know that stat as well.